on LinkedIn. We've got a great group of people here that have joined for the rebranding conversation of REMA, the recycled materials industry. If everybody wants to go around and introduce themselves and whatnot, we can get into some of the conversations. I'm Matt Venuto. I'm with CRC Metal Recycling in Duncan, South Carolina. I'm the vice president of the SCRA, South Carolina Recyclers Association. I'm also on the REMA Southeast board in terms of membership co-chair. If Daniel, you want to go ahead?
Absolutely. Thank you, Matt. And thank you, Jennifer and Brett and Marissa for having me on and Matt. So I'm with Manufacturing Masterminds, and I'm call myself the average dude, but I like to learn about different industries, and the metal recycling industry has just been something that's really caught my interest. Matt has taught me a lot working with him, and looking forward to this conversation.
Wonderful. I'm Jennifer Betts. I'm the CEO of Recycled Media. Matt, appreciate the invite on this. I'm looking forward to it. Daniel, it's great to meet you. I've been watching your content for a while now, and it's been very interesting. So I'm looking forward to getting the chance to talk to you about a lot of the exciting things that are happening in this industry.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to it.
I'm Brett Eckhart. Just an old school scrap guy like Matt. Got a couple yards out in Idaho. Just try and keep the wheels on the bus. I get to hang out with Marissa and Jennifer on a regular basis over at Recycled Media, and I'm just here to talk about exciting changes with ISRI going to REMA and all kinds of other rebranding, what it takes to get all that done.
Yeah, Jennifer or Brett, if you guys just kind of want to give some history on what's happened, where you guys were the last week, how the rebrand went, in your opinion, we'll start out there.
Go ahead, Jennifer. This is right up your alley.
Absolutely. So Brett and I are still recovering from Vegas, as we're about to go back to Vegas for another conference in a few days. But about a week ago, 2 weeks ago at this point, the former ISRI, the Institute of Scrap Recycling Industries, had their annual conference out in Las Vegas, where they announced a major rebrand. It was the first time in 30 years that this association rebranded to the Recycled Materials Association. It had a major launch, a huge, I'd say, party, dare I say, on the last day of the conference, where they went over a lot of the major reasons why this is something that's been in the works for several years at this point. And ultimately they used this conference as a jumping off point. And the last day was when they revealed the logo, the colors, the official name, everything revolving around it, the thought process behind it, and then ultimately all the swag items that came along with it. And so that was revealed, I believe, April 18th. So we're not even 2 weeks out from that grand reveal in Vegas a couple weeks ago.
Nice. A lot of excitement in the room, Jennifer, when they had that reveal. What was the vibe in the room like?
Yes, there was a lot of anticipation. I do have to comment. Our industry trades information, and this was probably one of the most well-kept pieces of information that haven't heard in the marketplace. A lot of rumors, I would say, but not necessarily any tidbits of information that was out there.
Yeah, so it kind of shocked everybody, took everybody by surprise, which probably made it more energizing, more exciting for everyone too.
Absolutely. Now, I think a lot of people expected some sort of recycled materials to be in the name. The past few years, the hashtag recycled materials, that lexicon project that they had been pushing, been using with recycled materials, was, something that a lot of people were used to at that point. Mm-hmm. But we just didn't know, was it going to be the Institute of recycled materials? Was it going to be, you know, the association? What was exactly the name?
Yeah.
I'm curious what Brett was saying. Brett, what were you thinking about ISRI and kind of where we were going with this? What did you see coming? You've been doing this a long time.
You know, it doesn't bother me as much as it bothers some people. You know, I'm kind of an and guy, not an or guy. So I've always played by the rules of, you know, if you guys want to call yourself REMA and we still want to say the word scrap, like I don't really care. I mean, some of our businesses are part of, you know, that trade association. Some are not. You know, it just depends on, you know, which one. And I'm like, I like the word scrap. It doesn't bother me, but I understand the importance of the overall branding, the overall marketing of an industry. Mm-hmm. So I think that it's really like, if you're really that hung up on it, then don't pay your dues. Like, don't be a part of it. If you like it, you think it's good for the industry, then pay your dues and be a part of it. But for me, like, you know, I don't see it as a bad thing. I see it as it's marketing. Like you know, if you're not in the business of marketing, whether for your business or for your industry, then what are you really doing? You know? So I look at it as them just trying to create awareness around all the positive things we're doing in our industry. And if you got to change a word or two, then change a word or two. But do what makes sense.
Tell me what they did with the word scrap. So some of this I'm gonna have to kind of pull back so I can kind of educate myself. What did they do with the word scrap, and why do you think they did it?
Well, they just I think they're trying to go away from the word scrap when we're talking to your local politicians, your people that are in influential decision-making positions, because scrap from their perspective, and then when I say there, it's the groups that decide on, you know, we need to make a name change, whether it's the associations or then they go out and look for outside consulting companies to help them, you know, identify what word is important and what's not. But I genuinely think that there's like a push to kind of remove that word from a lot of the, you know, the industry speak. Right now, internally, we still call it, it's scrap to us, and we can still, to me, like we know what we're talking about. But I think when you're trying to get everybody else that's outside your industry to understand what you're doing, you know, they lean more into recycled materials because they can kind of convey what the positives that our industry is doing.
Absolutely. Matt, what do you think about that, Matt?
Yeah, so just to parlay on what Brett said, also, you know, when we're writing laws, right, this is one of the biggest things, right? Sometimes we get clumped in with the solid waste industry, and so we want to differentiate ourselves. You know, maybe scrap is like solid waste to some people, right? So when we're writing laws, especially like in South Carolina, wherever, down here in the Southeast, recycled material needs to be in the framework of the law because we protect our laws with our industry, right? And it helps our members differentiate between metal recycling and solid waste, right? There can be things that are negative, right? Like, you know, a local municipality can put in a clause and say, all right, everybody's going to get hit at $2 a ton on waste hauling, right? Well, you don't want the solid waste, you don't want the recycler to be hit with those impact fees, right? So writing of the laws is very important, and the verbiage of the laws is very important to the association. I agree with Brett, you know, when we're talking to politicians, people, you know, at a higher level, the use of recycled materials is very important. You know, if we're having an internal discussion, I think it's going to be a generational thing. It might phase out, but man, if we're in the backwoods of South Carolina, some of that stuff might ever phase itself out. So I hear both sides of the story. This is the biggest reason why I'm on here and I brought this group together, is because, you know, I want to be able to talk to the people that are out there that don't necessarily agree with the change, right? I want everybody to know that we hear you, right? We understand what you're saying. I'm not necessarily a pay your dues or don't. I still want to talk to those people and have the conversation. And if people want to continue to have the conversation, then they need to get engaged like anything else, right? If you don't like what's going on, you need to get engaged and voice your opinion.
Jennifer, I've got a question for you. Do you think you're going to use the word scrap moving forward, or will you change your vocabulary?
It's going to depend on who I'm talking to. And I mean, full disclosure, I have a business called Scrap Trader.
Mm-hmm.
Do I plan to change the name of that business? Probably not, because it's a product for internal use within our industry. It's a communication platform, an e-procurement, e-sale software tool for scrapyards, for brokers, for exporters within our industry. Am I going to change my vernacular when I talk to investors or when I talk to people that are looking to invest outside the industry? Am I suddenly going to say that it's a recycled material, circular economy, sustainable platform? Probably. Yes, I probably am, because let's be honest, if I say that I have a scrap platform, their eyes are going to glaze over. They're probably not going to understand what I'm talking about, even though we are the OG of circular economies, right? Like we've been around for generations. We created circular economies before that was even a word.
Yes.
But the money doesn't follow the term scrap, to be honest, in the outside world, right? There are trillions of dollars that are being put around our industry,
Yes.
but not a lot of it is actually getting funneled into our industry in the terms of investment and essentially coming to our industry, because we haven't necessarily adjusted our verbiage to the outside world.
I see.
So,
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I'm starting to understand much more now. Yeah, I've got it.
I think it's. I mean, to Jennifer's point, I mean, she has a business that's Scrap Trader. She has a business that's recycled media. One of them's a marketing company, right? And one of them's an actual trading company. So your marketing company, you're trying to market, you're trying to drive positivity, awareness around your brand, awareness around your industry. And trading is very different, right? Like that's somebody that knows what Zorba is. That's somebody that knows what old sheet or prepared iron. Like it's like, I think Jason Glee said it. It's inside baseball versus, outside. It's people that they know the terms, they know the words, like use them, talk to them, like play the game. But if you're trying to drive awareness around your industry and all the positivity you're doing, then you're probably going to have to speak in general terms. And in general terms, that's where I think they're trying to go with even the name change of the industry. And to Matt's point, as far as like pay your dues or not, you can still like the industry and decide you don't want to be a part of REMA. Like there's a lot of people that take the benefits of it that don't pay their dues, right? And you don't feel that the juice is worth the squeeze for you as a small, medium, large business, then that's entirely up to you. It's your money to spend or not spend. But I still think it's still marketing. The purpose of a trade association is to market the companies that are a part of it in a positive light. That's all it is.
Yeah.
Either you're on the marketing train or you're not.
You have to understand from ISRI/REMA's perspective, a big part of what REMA's job is and their mission is from a lobbying standpoint to benefit us, right? So they have to go to legislators. They have to go to DC, to the Hill, on Congress, and they have to essentially explain to people that have never walked a scrapyard, right? They've never been to a steel mill, right? They don't understand what we do from a day-to-day basis and how we essentially are the recycling world, right? So they have to adjust in terms of presenting themselves of we are the Recycled Materials Association, so that when people see the agenda items coming up, they immediately know, oh, we're about to talk to these people. That's fantastic. My constituents are about sustainability, or we're about, the circular economy. All of a sudden they're realizing, great. But then when REMA starts talking to them about infrastructure, manufacturing, economy, it's a twofer. It's a huge win for them. And then it ultimately benefits us as a whole. It just makes their job easier to benefit us.
Yes, it's starting to, there's a lot of moving parts in this. And what I had to do as someone that's just now learning about this industry is really think through all of those moving parts and go back to the basics and really start to learn from there, because we don't think about all these things. For someone that's not necessarily in the industry, we don't think how deep it goes. We don't think of all the political and all that goes into it with all the money. And so the word scrap makes someone like me, oh, that's the scrap business, right? And now I'm kind of I'm putting it in a bucket that it doesn't necessarily belong in. It's a much bigger deal than scrap. So
Right.
I see that, but you can talk to people that know and are familiar with the same terminology that works for them, just like acronyms in IT or anything else that other folks are going to understand.
Absolutely. I see that Ian popped up a comment about how battery, plastic, and waste recycling grants have blown away grants and programs for metal recycling. And this, I mean, this is absolutely true. But then when you take a look at from an export standpoint in the United States, recycled metals is one of the top export items in terms of value that the United States puts out annually. Like in terms of all the items that we push out, agriculture, consumer goods, whatever, recycled metals is one of the top items.
Wow.
But yet, where's our grants? Where are our investment? Where are the dollars for us?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that sounds like it's an issue, and that's an issue, part of one of the issues that you're working to, one of the gaps that you're looking to bridge. Is that right?
I think too, also, I mean, it's there for the longest time, our industry was very content with flying under the radar. And I think this has a very valid point in this whole conversation is, you know, even if I talk to guys in my dad's era, they're very content with just being the guys that picked up the scrap, you know, behind the manufacturing facility, processing it and selling it to an end user, right? Whether it's an aluminum smelter or a steel mill. And they always wanted to fly under the radar, whether it was regulatory issues or whatever. And I think that there's now become there's a point where it's a big enough business, it's a big enough opportunity, if you will, to where people like ourselves, we want to say, hey, like, we don't want to be the guys with the bins that have to sneak in at night and pick up the scrap and take it to the steel mill and nobody knows we exist, because we're a huge part of that. The industry, the steel industry, the aluminum, copper industry as a whole. So it's almost like you're stepping up to take your place at the table, if you will. And you've always had a place at the table, but you've just always tried to hide and act like, you know, and whether that was because you thought you could make more money and you didn't want people to know that you were doing okay or whatever it was. I think everybody had their own reasons. Everybody's afraid to get regulated or fined or whatever the case may be. But at some point, it's an information game. And now people know that you exist, whether you like it or not. So you might as well step up and say, we're here. We're here to stay. This is our contribution. This is our part of it. And we're proud of it. And whatever that looks like, I mean, it can look very different depending on who you talk to. But I think it's just more people are, you know, starting to step up and say, no, I'm proud to go to my son's school. And they say, what do you do for a living? And I say, I'm in the recycling business, right? Or the scrap business or the auto salvage business or the whatever that is. And it's not such a look down upon profession, I guess.
Right. I think too, Daniel, like if we take the history back on this, kind of what Brett's saying, you know, when America was founded and whatnot, right, the higher jobs like the bankers and the doctors and the lawyers, right, these are all very prized jobs in America, right, Wall Street, brokers, whatnot. So as the immigrants came over and through Ellis Island and stuff, right, a lot of families, Jewish, Italian, whatnot, they weren't entitled to those type jobs, right? So they ended up in metal recycling and they ended up in waste, right? And as America grew as a country, right, and its industrial base grew and whatnot, its population grew, right? these businesses and these industries became big business, along with all the other big business joined to it, right? So kind of what we're saying, these were not jobs anybody wanted. That's why they called it scrap, right? This was not a glamorous job. It's still not a glamorous job, right? Some of it's portrayed as kind of glamorous, and there's some videos out there with people wearing collared shirts and stuff. I don't really see that many of those people in the yards that I go to, but they do exist, right? There are times that you have to go into a meeting with some executives and whatnot for an industrial account, right? But a lot of the guys are still blue collar. Guys and girls are still blue collar, right? In the trenches every day. Brent's, one of those guys. I'm one of those guys. So that's kind of where we stand right now.
Yeah. So I've got a question. From your standpoint, Matt and Brett's, do you want more do you want people to know how much money is actually in scrap? That's going to be more competition. If we make
that cat throw you out of the bag, man. I hate to tell people it's not. We always make the joke, the guy riding in with 10 pounds of copper looks at the Comex on his cell phone and he's like, oh, I'll leave you for 5 cents a pound. I'll ride down the road to the next scrap yard. So, the world is extremely flat in a lot of areas. Metal recycling and waste are no different. A lot of the tricks of the trade that we've heard back from generations, scrap was a charge item. It's only until recently that it's I remember looking at old AMMs, Brett, where heavy melt was $25 a ton, and that's not that long ago, right? So, as the information trades around the world and people get more savvy, and now we have these supercomputers and quantum computers coming, the information trade is at light speed, right? You just have to adapt to the change,
I like to think, like, I'm looking at the comments and and I see somebody here that says recycled metal and scrap business pays billions of dollars a year, local and national truck drivers. They're super important to the economy in Canada and the US. Absolutely. Like, I think it's a matter of, we're paying taxes. We're doing all the right things. For the most part, a lot of people in our industry are running clean shops. Their guys are in PPE. They're doing all the right things. It's just that they're not highlighting that, right? And whether it's they're afraid of, the optics behind it, or they're afraid somebody might think that they're making a little bit of money. But at the end of the day, we're all in business. We're all trying to make money. Some years are better than others. I'll tell you that. There's some years that you don't want to be in this business financially. It's a tough go.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that it's a good. I do think that it's a business that you should be proud of being. You should be proud of being part of, an industry you should be proud of. But we're paying a large volume of taxes. We're putting a large amount of material back into the system. We're exporting large volumes of material to other countries. They're like the Indian economy, for example. They're the next China, I believe. They're up and coming. You take the scrap. You take the ISRI conference in 2008, and you walk that conference floor and you see how many Chinese buyers there were. You take that and you put that against this year's conference, and it would totally flipped, and that's how many Indian buyers there were, right?
Wow.
Any country that's up and coming, that's trying to build their economy, they build it on the back of recycled materials, whether it's steel, copper, aluminum. That's how they build their infrastructure, right? And to me, you're a vital part of how this whole world goes around. You just got to take your seat at the table. And if you got to change your name to do that, change your fucking name. Move on.
There you go. There you go.
That's why we're live. Well, and on Brett's, note about the recycled materials front, recycled metals front, the United States is one of the largest, if not the largest, producer of recycled metals. And you're seeing the investment coming from international companies to the United States. You're seeing that investment set up here because companies are moving manufacturing facilities here because we have the raw materials here. So yes, there are a lot of buyers that are coming to these conferences, that are coming to the States to obviously purchase and ship overseas. But you're also seeing companies coming here, like Arubis is setting up a shop here. Wieland is, coming here. I mean, this is a major reason why Nippon Steel may or may not be closing the deal on U.S. Steel, because again, they want investments here because they see the opportunity to secure a supply chain here, because scrap is the next gold. I mean, we've been talking about it from a very global perspective. There is this shift over to the sustainability side of things. They're moving away from, as much as we can, away from the mining side of things and increasing the recycled content side of things. So if you're following the money trail of things, scrap to recycled materials, I mean, it's the internal versus external use of the word.
I get a kick out of, like, there's been some pushback, right, on people like, oh, I'm keeping the word scrap. I want to, like, that's important. It's important to our history. It's important to, and it is, right? Like, my podcast is Scrap Life. I'm not changing it to Recycle Material Life. Like, it is what it is. Like, it's staying the way it is. But like, we all, as business owners, operators, we all are driven to a certain extent about creating opportunity for our people. And the way you do that is you make a viable business that makes money. That's what it is. So wouldn't you want your business to be looked at in a better light from other industries to give you more business, or to give you a higher valuation of what your business is worth? Like, you're essentially pushing back on your company really being worth more money, or being looked at as a more potentially positive investment for some private equity down the road. Or basically, I mean, you're kind of like, to me, it's backwards thinking. I think that, that there's always going to be, I don't want to tear down the history book and rewrite it. It's always going to be a part of it. But I mean, if you're trying to grow your business and you're trying to build, then you kind of got to go with the theme of the day, the week, the month, the year, the decade. And that's the route.
Well, I'm starting to understand. This is interesting to hear, because I'm starting to build a better picture of what's going on. So that's really, I think they may be fighting against the flow, right? I mean, they're going against something that's going to change. How can we look at it in a way where it's advantageous for us, as Brett says? And I think that it is. I think that you're right. And the scrap and what that means for the guys that are in the business and really kind of in the trenches, it's still scrap. We're just
and like, we live in an and world, right? Like, you should be. It doesn't have to be or. You can be both.
Yeah.
Right? And it's also from a labor force standpoint too. If you take a look at a lot of the labor force studies about Gen Z, for instance, Deloitte, a lot of the university studies, they care about sustainability. They care about environmental. They care about, ESG. They will take a less paying job if their job matches up with their personal beliefs. They will leave a job if their company doesn't align with their personal beliefs. Like, as a millennial, this blows my mind, right? Like, I've always been chasing the career aspect of things, right? So from that perspective, we have such a golden, metal pun, opportunity here, right? Because we literally have set ourselves up from a industry standpoint that we are sustainable, we are the circular economy, we are those buzzwords, and we have been for generations. And yet, from a marketing perspective, we keep pushing back and saying, no, we don't want to be those things. But from a labor standpoint, we have this huge opportunity to recruit the next generation and have them come into our businesses and have them love what we do as much as we do for the next generation, right? And yet we're not like jumping on this wagon and showing them what we do and showing them how it supports infrastructure and it can reduce carbon emissions, and we're not looking at it that way.
It's marketing. It's recruiting. Like,
we're working on that.
Marketing is recruiting, right? Like, why do you market your business and talk about all the cool things you do? Because you're recruiting, right? You're recruiting people. You're recruiting more business. So, I mean, I think that's what we're trying to do, is we're trying to recruit that next generation into this industry and shine a positive light on what we're doing. I have in 2008, 7, we used to be this United Metal and Scrap Company Inc. That was our name, right? And then we kind of we shortened it down to, it was United Metals for the longest time. And our logo was a globe with a big chain around it. Like, that was our logo. As far back as I can remember, like, that was our logo, United Metals. So people would call, like, you guys sell new steel? Like, what do you guys do? We get those phone calls, and then they see our logo, and it's just Earth with a big chain. And eventually, like, I think, I said, we got to change our name. Like, we're in the recycling industry, so we changed our name to United Metals Recycling. And it just totally, and then we added that we changed the name, we added the arrows into the logo, and that's our logo to this day. So even us, like, as far back as being a real true blue scrap guy, I knew, like, we needed to clean up the image of not a Earth, not a globe with a chain on it, more like, hey, like, we're actually in the metals recycling business. Like, let's promote, like, the goodness of what we're doing, right? And I think that, I mean, as much as people want to, complain about ISRI, I mean, honestly, if you want my honest opinion, fuck,
we do.
This long, like, it took us all the way till 2024 to get to where we had, like, it took us that long. But hey, I mean, better late than never. I get it. So I think there's a lot of companies out there that are having to have that conversation now, right? Or maybe have had that conversation, which is kind of one of the reasons why I think we wanted to put this together is, how do we, which companies are out there that are doing this, that have already, thought about how they're presenting themselves, whether it's a name change or whatever. And there's been a few recent examples, right?
Schnitzer Steel.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like I will forever reference them as Schnitzer Steel, but Radius Recycling now. I mean, that seems like a kind of a clear one. Schnitzer Steel, for those that may not be aware of them, because I'm seeing some of the comments and some of the folks may not be as familiar with the scrap industry, recycled materials industry, as others, but they own one steel mill. So, but they have multiple scrap yards, recycled metal recycling facilities. I'll get it eventually. It's been a few decades, of scrap. But so from a marketing perspective, why are you calling yourself Schnitzer Steel when you own one steel company and that's not the majority of your business? Now, Schnitzer was a family-run business. There were no longer any more Schnitzers in the business, so it made sense to rebrand, right? Mm-hmm. So they went to a Radius. Radius kind of implies circular economies, hint, see where they're going. Recycling, obviously, that's a hot topic these days. It makes sense, right?
Yep.
Do that rebrand because they're more on the recycling side of things, and their steel mill is an EAF, an electric arc furnace, so obviously they remelt.
Got it.
So it's understandable.
It is. It makes sense. Makes logical sense. Matt Venuto, what are you hearing from other folks that you're talking to? I know you talk to a lot of folks. What are you hearing about all their thoughts on what's happening?
Yeah, so I've heard both sides of the argument. I've heard that this is the extreme side is this is extremely woke. You're doing it to cater to a certain crowd. I've heard that this we needed to do this. It's time to get away from, I don't know, the institute and the scrap so that we can, like I said, write the laws and whatnot. But it's a very broad spectrum, right? I think too. I'm always going to hear both sides because I represent REMA Southeast co-chair membership. I'm always looking for the money, Brett. So don't be trying to hate on my money here. But I also,
Hey, I just call it like
at the end of the day,
I encourage people to pay Matt.
There we go. At the end of the day, we have scrap in our name too. We're CRC Scrap Metal Recycling. So sometimes we go as CRC Metal Recycling. It's funny because now I'm writing emails to customers and I'm like, can we get some load weights on your recycled material scrap? I don't really, I'm kind of fumbling over my words too when I'm writing to people, right? So, I think we're just in this transitionary phase of, whether you agree with it or not. I think that the leadership up at REMA deserves a lot of credit because they had this idea. They knew. We might look back 50 years from now and go, man, they were forward thinking with this stuff, right? Like Brett said, we should have done it long time ago, right? They deserve a lot of credit for pushing this ball into the end zone, right? Because like I said, there's a lot of people that are in the background that are not speaking that don't like what's going on, right? I've asked those people to get engaged, whether they want to get engaged or not. Is their personal choice, right? I think that we need to be engaged. That's why we're all on this conversation because we're very engaging people in the industry. So like I said, I represent the state of South Carolina in terms of metal recycling. I represent ISRI Southeast, now REMA. And we also, like I said, we have it in our name. So it's, like I said, I think it's an audience thing. It's a marketing thing, like Brett says.
Are you going to change your name, Matt? You guys going to change your name?
Absolutely not. We're not changing our name. No.
Well, because I think there's companies out there that are like, I've seen the question posed, right? Like, should we change our name? Like, if scrap's in your name, like, should we change our name? And I mean, that's a very personal decision, right? I think.
Like I said, we are CRC Scrap Metal Recycling, but I'm just kind of lazy, so I write CRC Metal Recycling. It's not because I don't like the scrap; it's because I'm lazy. Let's be honest. So I had to write that every time, right? It can get exhausting, right? But yeah, I don't see CRC changing their name anytime soon. Nope.
Well, I kind of had a question. Can I ask a question?
Yeah,
fire away.
Fantastic. Matt, I know you got into the metal recycling game. What was it about metal recycling? We've talked about a lot of different things that you fell in love with, that you said, hey, this is something I'm gonna make a career in.
Oh yeah. So I got out of like hospitality and whatnot and always wanted to do something kind of like in account management, sales. That's what my father and my brother do. So I interviewed with a bunch of companies here in the upstate. I interviewed a management training program at Michelin, all types of jobs, right? But I met some guys, the Franks down at Triple M Metal, and I really liked, some of my past bosses were not the best of guys. So I really like these guys, but I really like metal recycling because it's something different every day. It's a little bit of market trading. It's a little bit of heavy equipment on heavy equipment, kind of like a general contractor. And I really embraced the industrial side, right? I was a lot into like the OEMs and the tier one automotives when I worked for Triple M. I was able to travel, meet people from all walks of life, all over the Southeast, and all over, even out in Iowa, Brett, there were some plants that I went to. So I got to experience a lot of snow, a lot of cold weather. That was the coldest I've ever been I think it was 3 degrees in Des Moines, Iowa one day. And I was like, what
They
are
don't
we
mess
doing
around in
out here,
Iowa.
man?
It's
What
it
are
gets
we
cool.
what are we
Iowa,
even
the
doing out
Dakotas.
here?
Yeah.
So, man, I
Especially
met
if you're
some
from the
incredible.
South. Yeah, you're used to
Yeah,
that weather.
I met some incredible people along the way. And then a guy named Tom Rice, who was a past president of Israel Southeast. Yeah, I guess he kind of saw that I was very engaged, right? So he's the one that kind of brought me into the Southeast, and eventually I made my way into leadership. I've served on that board before. Now I'm kind of in a kind of a board role, but a leadership role on that thing. And then, like I said, I'm doing the thing in South Carolina. So all things recycling in South Carolina too, as well.
Yeah. And I know, Brett, your dad was in the business. And so what was that like growing up in the scrap business, and why are you still in it?
Because I'm not smart enough to do anything else. This is what I know.
Come on now.
Yeah, I'm third generation. Like I always loved it. I grew up in it. This is what I like to do. I mean, I think there's probably other businesses I could probably make a little more money and pay you a little more taxes doing, but I'd rather do this, for the most part. No, I don't know. I think this is just, it's like you can go chase money or you can go chase doing stuff you really like to do. And I try and do a little bit of both, but my heart really is just in this industry and the people that are in this industry.
Yeah. Yeah. You seem like it. I can tell that it seems like it's a family thing to you. You've got the scrap life thing up there on the wall. And I love that, man.
This is what I enjoy. I mean, this is a big part of it to me.
Yeah.
And that's why the name change doesn't bother me, because I think it's at the end of the day that things evolved. I don't believe, for example, I had somebody said it to me the other day, and I really like this analogy. And they said, I don't agree with tearing down like in the South, tearing down all these statues that represent the history of your country. Would you do things differently today, knowing what you knew you'd do back then? Yes, of course. Like it's not the same, right? You things are different. That doesn't mean you tear down the history. It just means you figured some stuff out. You got better. You got a little smarter. You figured out how to put your industry in a better light. Nobody's saying like tear down the old and it's all about the new. Like preserve your history. And I think that's a big part of it for me. Like that's why I'm not changing the name or any of that. Like I still preserve it. It's important. It's how we got to the place we're at today. But you can either change, or die. And I'm not trying to die. I'm trying to hang around for a little longer.
And now, Jennifer, I know you've got a what I would say a broad range of talents, and I think, well, you tell me what is it about this whole industry that you love and that has kept you in it and loving it like you do?
Honestly, the easiest answer is the people. I started off, I'm one of those DJJ kids. So love me, hate me, depends on which side of the line on there. Brett's laughing because he was on the hate me side of that line for many years.
But I changed. That's
funny.
We've changed. We're
you got it now.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So I started off with the David J. Joseph Company before Nucor acquired them. So I traded non-ferrous, and then I went to the ferrous side. Brett was one of my suppliers. Back in the day.
Brett.
Yes.
I sell the DJJ.
No,
yeah.
Get me into a trader.
I think everybody does. And actually, the relationship's gotten better, but.
Yeah. Obviously, we're on friendlier terms than probably back then. But yeah, Daniel, to your point. So back then, like I would buy non-ferrous. I'd go to scrap yards. I've been to hundreds of scrap yards across North America. To your point, I saw a comment, about going to Canada when it was way colder. I tried to make sure that my travels did not go to Canada during those winter months for that specific reason. Didn't always work out along those lines. So much respect to those people that can live up there.
This was a huge radius of scrap yards that you were visiting. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. So my territories over the years have pretty much covered at this point most of North America, I would say, because I worked for DJJ in a couple different offices. I worked for AK Steel, and we had 5 different melt shops. I had my own brokerage and consulting company for 4 years as well that also handled a wide variety of territory as well. So been to a few scrap yards in my day. And so that's why it's tough to drop that term for me. Right. But the people in this industry are incredible. They're hardworking, hilarious characters. I mean, it's been fascinating over the years to meet all of the different individuals that I've met.
It seems like there would be a lot of, I'm sure these conferences, they have such a wide variety of personalities. I'm sure those are very interesting. And then you have like you say, the global impact. So you have some folks visiting from India and places like that.
Hey, I see a question in there that says, what does Marissa do? Marissa,
yes.
I'm not leaving you out. You're not going to get out easy on this one. Talk to us. What does Marissa do? I haven't heard her speak, and I wasn't on when the show started. I want to know. What do you do all day, Marissa?
Brett, I put up with you in your big brain ideas. I am the director of digital marketing for Recycled Media, so I kind of handle all of our back end things. I work with all of our clients. I mean, my mind is currently running 100 miles an hour. That's what I do.
Yeah.
Someone just wrote, she is the boss, and I second that opinion because I really know like who keeps everything rolling, and I just want to make sure that there's one person that keeps this train going, and it's Marissa. So I was not going to let you escape.
I'm sitting over here making a checklist in my mind because our wonderful newsletter comes out.
Yes.
It's supposed to be today, Brett, but it's going to be tomorrow. So I'm like running through the list in my head of which cats I have to herd still because I still need stuff. So that's what I'm doing in the corner.
Which that newsletter is called Recycled 360, not Scrap 360, right?
We named that correctly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you do, average dude? I'm curious.
Yeah. So I actually we have the manufacturing masterminds, which is a group that Matt and I just started. And so that includes things like this where we have discussions and we learn about different industries. So I love the 30,000 foot view of different things that go on in manufacturing and construction. And so I really just wanted to create something that gave me the ability to have fun, right? To go have experiences, go meet people, go learn about things, connect people from different ponds. I like different personalities and kind of what we're talking about with the shows there in the metal recycling conferences. I like that kind of thing to bring people together. But so I'm just kind of creating that as I go, but it would probably be kind of sales and marketing related. So I've been in business development. Jennifer that asked the question earlier about Marissa, that's my cousin. And she's actually going to join the manufacturing mastermind. She'll be one of the hosts with me. And we had a show called Jenny Winnie and the Average Dude. And that will air for the first time. That'll air tomorrow under the Manufacturing Masterminds page. So we're excited about that. So we were waiting on the right opportunity to kind of start that. So I've got First Sip. I like to spread myself real thin.
Yeah.
I've got what we do. It's called the First Sip, where we kind of a high energy type sales talk, facility manager focus, where we're talking to the decision makers within plants and facilities. And one of those things being, of course, Matt talks to these guys, and this is how we kind of connected on this, right? About their what they're doing with their scrap. And so this is what's so awesome about just anything, in my opinion. If we get curious about it, it just opens up this big world, and it goes so much deeper than we thought. And really why I do it is to have conversations like this where I can really start putting the puzzle pieces together. Now I've got a better understanding of, and Matt's tried to explain it to me, but it takes a while sometimes to really, before things land and you start understanding it fully.
What he's trying to say is he's never listened to me until now, Brett. That's what he's trying to say.
Well, I think the manufacturing industry and the recycling industry are much more closely aligned than people really realize. And man, people ask me all the time, and I've had this conversation, with multiple people, is I could probably tell you how the local economy is doing sooner, faster than most basically anybody that's in economics at Boise State, right? Because if I feel the manufacturing picking up, that means they're generating more scrap. And the more scrap is getting generated, then I know more widgets are being built, more buildings are being built, more, I can feel like the momentum coming. I know when the economy's ripping.
Yeah.
I'm busy, right?
You're slammed.
The economy in 2021 versus say today, the scrap flow might be off, say 35%, 40%, depends on the area where you're at. And I'm telling you, those guys and gals that are in that industry, they can tell you what's going on. They'll be like, yep, it's slowing down. Car sales are slowing down. They know before, probably the realtor knows, because that's when those sales slow down, when that flow slows down, that's when layoffs happen, right? And as soon as layoffs start happening, but we feel it quicker probably than anybody. And that's how closely aligned that the manufacturing industry is with the recycling industry.
Yeah, it's a good place to take the pulse of the overall world economy, because like you say, construction, manufacturing, this is a great indicator of what's going on worldwide. So that's interesting.
So kudos to Matt for getting involved in the manufacturing side. He's trying to get the leg up on the scrap before anybody else. I like your style, Matt.
We're creating proximity, like Daniel said. Whether it creates business opportunities, we'll see how that goes. But yeah, man, we got to think outside the box. I think this LinkedIn Live definitely helps us do this stuff. And people we wouldn't even get close to, we've gotten close to. So you got to do things a little bit different in the new world,
Absolutely.
Really, Brett, it's we have those conversations in manufacturing. We want to have just open discussions, right? So where we kind of pull those walls down, and we're not saying what's right, we're saying what we feel or how we, similar to what we've done here today. But I think, learning at that kind of elementary level, different things and having high energy conversations and connecting people. So it's been fun, and this has been fun. Thank y'all for having us.
Yeah.
And I think also think about this too. And I mean, Jennifer can probably speak to this as well, but as these large manufacturing companies, they're starting to get more involved in their scrap. It's now a revenue. It's a true line item for them on their P&L, right? They're trying to cut back their weight. They're trying to cut back their waste that they're generating. They're also trying to cut back the scrap that they generate in order to basically get more. Say, like, think about a laser jet operation. They want to get as much out of that sheet as they can, right? So lasers have gotten more efficient. They can get more cuts out of each sheet, more pieces and parts out of each one, so they can generate less scrap. Well, I think starting to get these bigger aluminum mills, these bigger steel mills, and they're trying to keep as much of that material in-house and not let it, work its way back into the scrap stream, right? So they're trying to keep that, make it more circular, give their customers credits back so they have, they can create more sales. So it's a very involved process on the recycling side, and we're becoming. I mean, it's the same reason why steel mills went on a tear buying recycling facilities, and this is where I think Jennifer can add an important piece to this. I mean, there's a reason why Nucor bought DJJ in 2007 or 8. I mean, they're the largest ferrous brokerage house in the U.S. I mean, they controlled a lot of tons. Well, if you own steel mills, you want to control those tons, right? It's the same reason why so much consolidation is going on in our industry on the manufacturing side, is because they realize how important those inputs and how important those tons and pounds are to their stream.
Yeah. I mean, on that note, when you take a look at the steel mills, essentially in the United States, most of them own their supply chain, essentially, minus US Steel. And I'm ignoring the iron ore side of things. But in recent years, US Steel has purchased EAFs, right? But they're basically the only EAF that doesn't own scrap yards at this point. And so you're taking a look at their situation, and it's kind of left them open for acquisition at this point, right? They're one of the less performing, we'll call it, steel mills, which is kind of crazy when you take a look at the past 4 years in terms of profits that the steel industry has seen, particularly in the United States, versus Nucor bought DJJ, which owns a bunch of yards, and they continue to buy yards. SDI purchased OmniSource, bunch of yards. Cleveland Cliffs bought FPT, Ferrous Processing and Trading, and continue. BlueScope bought half, just the ferrous section.
Yeah,
Of a yard, right? Or excuse me, North Star Delta bought BlueScope's ferrous section, right? So you're seeing that again, the scrap is the new gold in the supply chain, because there is this concern from a global perspective that as other areas in the world shift from integrated to EAF capacity, that they're going to come to the United States, where we have a surplus of scrap currently, and they're going to come for our scrap, right? So the steel mills are taking a look at that, and this also somewhat applies on some of the non-ferrous aspects of things too. They're taking a look at those acquisitions as well, because SDI is also building an aluminum mill as well. They're trying to secure their raw materials for that in the future, because again, they're getting anxious about where their raw materials are going to come from.
Wow.
So manufacturing and recycling are a lot more closely aligned, I think, than many people really understand, I guess was where I was going with that.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
and it's true.
Right.
Well, to your point, so what we've done is just kind of given ourselves a big umbrella where we can talk about a lot of different things, in manufacturing, construction, et cetera. So we it's kind of broad, but to your point, it is. And I love that kind of, like, as you say, the CNC guy, he's got to think about getting less waste. The game is so deep. It's so big. Jennifer does, the whole, the trading of these and all of the different variables that you have to, what makes a good deal. And then your side too, Brett. I mean, I don't fully understand that kind of, that's where I would want to dig deeper to understand, really what the game is and why we, buy here or whatever the case might be, right? Why we need this, what we need that, all that goes into it.
Yeah, Matt's your guy, man. He can probably break it down for you just as well as anybody, I truly believe.
He's tired of asking him questions, probably. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, it's an interesting biz.
It is.
So I know the conversation is kind of rounding down. We've had a number of people ask how to get involved in this industry. We all come from different corners, whereas I got my start at front desk of a scrapyard, right? So all different places we got started. How would someone get into this industry?
I think, at the end of the day, our industry is always looking for new talent, right? And I think your most of your good operators out there, if they see that you have an interest in this industry, whether it's on the marketing side, I saw somebody had talked about, getting involved in the marketing side. I mean, there's a lot of businesses in our industry that need marketing help, aka that's what we do, right? But I also know like there's just a lot of mom and pop businesses that could use help on that front. So it's just more about your willingness to approach them, reach out to them. But if you truly want to be involved, whether it's operating equipment or understanding the sales side of it, like what Matt does, LinkedIn is a great place to start. Indeed, looking at like what jobs are out there, I know for a fact that there's a lot of job opportunities in this industry if it's something you think could really fit your bill for what you'd be interested in doing.
I'd second the LinkedIn comment as well. There's a lot of jobs that are available out there on LinkedIn. You can also start looking at different associations to kind of get a feel for which companies are hiring as well. Some of those associations do have public job boards as so that kind of give you an idea of how you can get involved or enter into the industry, because some of them have junior or mentorship programs, like Association of Women in the Metals Industry, which is open to male and female members. But it's one of the best organizations in my mind in terms of fully integrated, because it's going to be from raw materials all the way up to OEMs. So if you're talking about the full manufacturing supply chain in the United States, it's fantastic from that perspective. You can obviously check out REMA, the Recycled Materials Association. You can start to get a little fragmented with AIST, which is the Association of Iron and Steel Technology. You can get, on the finished product side of things, MSCI, Metals Service Center Institute. You can just basically start checking out some of those associations, and they do have job boards that will start showcasing some of the entry points that you can get into the metals and recycled materials industry.
Mm-hmm.
Or apparently somebody in the comments can say,
you have a recruiter on.
Yep. Read the comments. Thanks, Casey. We got you. Casey, help him out.
Yeah, that's awesome though. You got somebody that's I was just going to speak to that. If you want to get in any industry, I think it's most important to become curious, interested, get boots on the ground, really get passionate and kind of fan the flames of desire about the industry itself. And that will come across in any interview once you are there. So if you legitimately want to be in something, they will know it regardless. And there seems like a lot of positions to really find your way in, including the front desk, right, Marissa?
Yeah, and be willing to start wherever. Like somebody said it, be willing to accept a position. And I think that's the truth in any industry, right? The only way you're going to know is to just get in there and get your hands dirty and figure it out. And, if you're good, most operators, whether they're operators or owners, they're worth their weight in salt. If you're good, they'll see it, right? I mean, they're trying to build their business too, build their team. I mean, if you're good at what you do, you're gonna find your way up. And if you haven't got any traction, then move on to the next one. But you got to give it some time. You got to be willing to work, show up, and do the job. But if you're good, people will recognize it. They'll move you along, especially in this industry. We're always on the hunt for help, but for good help too.
Yeah.
I'll tell you a funny story. When I started in metal recycling, I told the guys that I worked for, I said, give me all the customers that nobody wants. You talk about cutting your teeth, man. That was an eye-opening experience. But I came from a hospitality customer service background, right? So I knew that I had the ability to listen to people, right? Hear what they had to say. There's a lot of guys in this industry, and there still are, that have very strong opinions on the metal recycling, right? And you kind of have to temper those opinions when you're talking to industrial customers, especially customers that are extremely big business, right? You kind of have to take their ideas or take your ideas and blend them with their ideas and convince them that it was their ideas, that kind of thing, right? So that can become extremely hard, right? But yeah, if you're willing to work, get down the dirt and stuff. I mean, I worked in the yard before. It's not my strong suit, but I would go out and work in the yard if they asked me to work in the yard right now. Like I said, there's a lot of opportunity in metal recycling. You just have to be willing to work,
I will have to say the DJJ kids, as I will call them, because we're all basically college kids, 22 coming out of college, not really probably understanding what we signed up for. Nucor now basically puts us in 8 to 12 week training programs where they essentially send you around to all of the different scrap yards and they put you into scrap yards to train. And it's eye-opening and it's a wonderful training program where I remember training with people that had 2, 3, 4, 5 decades of experience. So now I know what color sparks mean which type of non-ferrous metals, right, when it comes across the scale. And I think that's a really great training program for people. And it also gives them an appreciation so that if you are going to go into more of a office job or something along those lines, you have that full perspective. I've also tossed a bag of ferroalloys into an LMF, like at a steel mill. It was wonderful. I had full flame retardant clothing on, but yeah, exactly. It was great. It was awesome. I lost 10 pounds in sweat that week working at the steel mill, but it just gives you a great perspective of all the different opportunities that exist out there.
Yeah. And I would say just one thing through the different careers that I have, different industries that I've been in, I would say that that's the one thing that I could go back and do over again. Really understand it A to Z and understand how different moving parts and really kind of getting out of not just that role to understand all of the peripheral stuff so that you really understand your role within that industry a little more clearly. So,
yeah.
Absolutely. If you're willing to learn, most people are willing to teach you if you're willing to learn.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, y'all did a great job with the live, with the setup. I've never been on a live and had all the different pairings done, and so this has been fun.
Thank you, Marissa.
Yeah,
like I
thanks,
said,
Marissa.
someone's got to keep wheels on the bus. Yeah. Actually, what does Marissa do? A lot.
Yeah,
a lot.
I couldn't even make a list, but I love my job, so it works out.
Yeah, you did a great job.
Right on. Thank you everyone for coming. I know this is a little hour out of everyone's day, but this has been really, really great. I'm glad we got to do this. We'll chat later, maybe for another one further down the line.